Hello everyone, welcome to another Godzilla video. I'm here with my new ranking series, I guess, with the first entry, NECA's Godzilla Showa era figures. So I'm going to be starting to do these because I have all the Showa era figures, and I'm going to be doing them with their other things like Heisei, Millennium, and Reiwa. That's also including the Monsterverse, by the way. But I still have yet to get all the figures, so I'm going to do all the figures then. But as for now, I'm going to do the Showa era series. So let's see which one ranks from worst to best. Now keep in mind, all these figures are fantastic. It's just, in some ways, I prefer others over others in just certain ways. So we're going to take a look at those reasons. Let's start out with number 4. Number 4 is NECA's 1956 Godzilla King of the Monsters poster version. Why is this guy at number 4 or in the bottom place? Simply put, I will give it that he is definitely the most eye candy with all his different colors, like his red pinkish fins, his green color scheme, his black color scheme, and the orange flame effect. It just all wraps up together for a nice, beautiful looking, colorful Godzilla, and debatably, probably the most colorful NECA Godzilla, assuming you're not Mothra. But where this guy falls is that he's kind of on the, I don't want to say lazy, but I really have no other word to use. I just feel like they could have went a little more beyond with this figure, if you know what I'm talking about. If you guys know what I'm talking about, anywho, it's just a concoction of already pre-existing Godzilla parts from NECA. It uses the body mold for the 54 Godzilla, but it also uses the 62's beam effect. Like, they couldn't have just resculpted the thing. Well, I mean, it is casted in a different plastic, I'll give it that, with some really nice dry brushing. But the articulation kind of suffers from it too, because here, Godzilla has like an underbite, while here, on the original, it's just fine. How did that happen? I have no idea. Another thing is that this could be just a QC issue, but my wrist is extremely loose. Going over to the same hand, this is actually somewhat tight, even after years of playing around with it. And keep in mind, I think this is only like a year or two old. This thing is like older than my channel, or maybe as old as the channel, maybe a little younger. I'm not sure. Can't remember the exact timeline of events. But basically, I feel like they could have went more with just a simple paint job. Also, the tail is still a bendy wire, which, come on, you couldn't have made that more segments. But yeah, that kind of is the major falling point. I mean, the paper backdrop was pretty cool, but unfortunately, I don't have that either. Also, because of this less loose neck joint, it can't really hold the beam. Yeah. So, overall, pretty good figure, but definitely ain't my favorite when it comes to comparing the other Showa era figures. Number 3, and get ready, people, because you're about to yell at me. The 1962 Godzilla, not 1964, he's all the way over there. Reason why this one is at number 3 is because I have a few issues with him, and it's mostly regarding its posability. Now, don't get me wrong, this was the first figure that absolutely changed NECA's rhythm of the game. I thought their previous figures were good. From this point onward, counting their classic figure reissues, and there goes the beam, this figure was rock solid, even though the head kind of popped off on me on my unboxing. But again, my main issue comes with its posability. From the shoulders and head, no complaints. Absolutely nothing. From the waist down, that's where we get into a bit of problems. The waist is barely movable. It can only get like a mild rotation, mild side to side, very mild. You basically might as well not have it. And the legs are very odd. Like, you can rotate it, but thanks to the sculpted in fold, it grinds up against this part of the mold, and then it stops like halfway. So you can't do a full 360 with that one. Now, I hear you say, oh, but that's only because of its clunky nature and its bulky look to it. There's no way they could do a full 360 on that. May I remind you of the 1994 Godzilla? The 1994 Godzilla has always been one of the more bulky Godzillas, and yet NECA did exactly that. They sculpted in this little section. I know that kind of looks ugly, but that allowed for a full rotation. Or at least more freed up the leg joint. Here, that's kind of its problem. Its leg joint isn't really that good. And also, its knees, I mean, you can get some pretty decent bending, but the feet are pretty much problem child here. They're obviously known to pop off, and this foot actually popped off on me so badly that I ended up just gluing the thing since nail polish and working neither would a hairdryer, not even boiling water. The rest of its posability is fine. The tail is awesome. The shoulders and head, as I previously mentioned, were fine as well. So overall, definitely not the best. Also, its beam effect, something to point out. You see that little bend right there? That's because over time, if you were to peg it in and leave it like that, the beam will start to droop the head joint and itself. So it starts to bend over time. I learned that the hard way. Probably should pay attention to early reviews. Number 2 is the 1964 Godzilla from NECA. Now, why is this number 2? Well, I would go ahead and say that articulation-wise, this is probably the best Godzilla out of all 4 of them. He can look up really fine. He can look down really fine as well. He can look left, right. No problems with the articulation QC-wise. And his tail's really posable. His waist and legs are also really dang posable. And so he's basically my favorite articulation-wise. So why is he at number 2? His beam effect. I'm not sure what in the world they were thinking, but why did they go for the 2001 beam effect instead? Look, it's literally the same thing. Granted, the peg is a little different, but it's the same thing on the reissue of the GMK, if that makes any sense. But you could say it's because of the size of his mouth, but even then, this would have worked just fine. Look, they're almost basically the same. No, this one's a little smaller. So that debunks that theory. So basically, how you put it in is very odd. You would think that because the flame effects are pointing upward, that you're supposed to put it in like that, right? Well, no. Here's how. On top of the roof of the mouth, on previous Godzillas, you would find a little peg hole that looks like a throat, and you would peg it in. Not necessarily the way with this guy. If you look closely in, you'll see a little tiny tab on top of that little hinge. Come on, zoom in. Yay, there we go. Right there. Now, why is it bad? Well, you have to align the beam effect, this little flat part on top, and then have this little gap kind of on the bottom. And then you're supposed to kind of shove it in that little tab, and then it'll hold, right? Not necessarily the thing for me. Okay, now it's making me look like a liar. Oh yeah, see, there you go. I think it kind of fits in there, but no matter how hard I shove it in there, I can stick it in there, but one wrong little move, like I can move it. Yeah, see, there you go. And like the 1962 Godzilla did not have that problem. See, I could weight this thing all day, and okay, it took a little more finessing, but you basically get my point. This connection sucks, and I mostly display it without the beam. So, if this beam's actually stuck in, this would have been the perfect Showa era figure. And number 1 is 1954. Oh boy, where do I start with this guy? His mold is super movie accurate. He looks like he came straight out of the movie. His sculpt and paint applications are beautiful. His articulation is superb. And while he didn't come with accessories in the first release, he did come with some accessories in the later release, which was a beam effect itself, and I guess maybe a little backdrop too. But I own the original release right here, by the way. And just to prove it to you, no peg hole. Yep. So basically, this figure is fantastic. I literally have no complaints with him. In the past, maybe I had, but honestly, they're so irrelevant to me now. I could just play with this guy all day. It's also the very first Godzilla figure I've had in ever. So, I don't know, maybe I'm being biased here, but honestly, this figure is really cool. And there you guys have it, from worst to best. Not necessarily a worst figure, but just kind of the worst out of the four. I think that this is kind of my definitive lineup. I like these figures more than one another for different reasons, but when you actually compare them, like in my eyes, actually give them all a good fair amount of a chance, I'd say the 54 Godzilla is easily my favorite. If we're going by what I'd consider the best overall, like in terms of giving it a score in a review, then comparing those scores in a review together, I'd go ahead and say that the 1964 Godzilla would be the winner. But that's more kind of me reviewing the figures separately and not necessarily looking at them all together. And if you look at them all together, this guy is the definitive winner. Anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys later. Well, bye.